new to me, but there we go. So we're live. And
Hey everyone.
it's so good to see you. It's been ages, but you know what is so exciting? I'm going to be seeing you soon.
So great, right? Wow.
I know. I'm arriving late on the 19th of March for this Bali retreat, which actually I've just got one free spot for somebody, from one lucky person who can take that.
Get in touch with Yvonne.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is just so amazing to me because everything's very serendipitous. And because I was planning to come and see you, a week or so ago, and then all of a sudden I got, no, you can't, you've got to be with the family. Of course, little did I know that my nephew would leave this plane, and I needed to be with his family in Malaysia, and therefore not skip across. So let's catch up with you. What have you been doing? I'm just so excited. I know the topic that we're going to be talking about is self-doubt, because to me it feels like it's one of the greatest nemesis that we have. It's one of the greatest saboteurs, and I know that you've had that creep in, quite a bit before you actually let it go and then just dived into the void. And so how about you tell us about this void and what you're creating, because it looks fabulous and I can't wait to get there.
I'll just give you a sneak peek.
Oh, look at that paradise in Bali. I love it. I love it.
So yeah, that's the void that was once a rice field.
But the last time I saw that, it was mud up to your knees.
Yep. Yeah, indeed. No, I've moved from online to on land in a very, very real manner. And that has brought up a lot of, I would call them withdrawal systems from the digital engagement and doing things for others and networking and connecting. And yeah, of course, when we're habitually engaged in activities that are, our everyday navigation, then to shift that navigation and pivot quite hard in a different direction, there's a little bit of a loss of identity. There's a loss of direction. There's the mind, all the normal familiar patterns of neurochemistry that we're running, of knowing what to do and how to do and where to do what. That has then all of a sudden a whole new terrain to have all sorts of new thoughts and all sorts of new questions and all sorts of new challenges to navigate. And then the old sort of neurological networks are almost like, hey, we're not being utilized anymore. And this, what you're doing now, seems neurologically quite complicated. And there's a bit of Stockholm syndrome in that, where the old familiarity of navigation kind of says, why don't you just come back here? Like, so every time there's been a bit of a financial hiccup, or because I've really been offloading every single dollar that I have into this place to be able to eat off this land fully by, let's say, next year, January. And it's going in the right direction, but there's a lot of changes and alterations around the house, and I'm navigating a lot of construction projects that I've never really had to stick my head into. And so, yeah, I have a little bit of Stockholm syndrome experiences over the past months, where it's like, why don't you just come back and just go to your favorite restaurant and go on a live stream, or write some more about what it is that you are doing. And I've really devoted myself to really do what it is that I've been talking about, to really experience direct firsthand the density of the here and the now, and the beautifulness of the density of the here and now, because I've predominantly lived in the what is next and the planning. And I don't think that anybody does a live stream just for the sake of talking to themselves, but there may be a few people out there on the earth who like the idea of just recording themselves and potentially somebody listening to that. For me, it's always with the thought of reaching others, inspiring others, connecting with others. And so other has been a tremendous part of my orientation and my navigation. And now it's not about other. It's about me, my immediate Balinese family, and setting systems and a paradise up so that the younglings that are still to come can roam this little pocket of paradise freely and with open curiosity, have it as a natural learning environment. And yeah, that's where I am right now, in the thick of it.
Wow. I'm just so excited because, as for me, when somebody is really listening to soul and following spirit without hesitation, there is so much energy coming through. And any time that we don't do that, it's always a struggle, and it doesn't mean that when we follow spirit that there isn't um, any effort needed. My golly, I'm like, for the effort needed, but it's effort that you do with knowing that you're going forward, that it's expansive, that it's life living. I always think that life is constantly demanding to be moving forward. And when we go into these times of doubt, of second guessing, of questioning, of asking others for their opinions, and how on earth can someone else tell you what is right for you if your soul isn't out front saying so? And that's really what I'm so excited about, because as you were talking, it's funny because your soul instantly was talking to me going, but this is the beginning. This is the beginning, because I could just see the expansion of this. Of course, this is a cameo where you just pick that up and you can say, don't do what I say, do what I've done, and I'll show you how. We're always show us, I'll show you how. And that's what this whole New Earth development is about. It's about showing the way, not just speaking the way. And I just absolutely love what you're doing. That is just so inspirational. And I know what it's taking. I can feel that. And you must have overcome so many moments where you think, really, what am I doing here? Right? How am I ever going to get out of this? Or what is this going to do for me? And how am I going to maintain the outside world, which is still there? You've got family, you've got, obligations, an awful word, but we do have commitments that we make, in life, and that because we are honest and have integrity, we do fulfill those commitments no matter what. Because we're honorable people. And so I know what it's taken for you. I also remember that you talked about, having a lot of doubt about taking those first steps and questioning yourself. And I know for myself, whenever in my life that I have questioned myself and followed the self-doubt rather than the soul calling, I've always ended up in terrible, terrible pain of some sort, and so I'd really like perhaps for us to, have a little bit of searching in our lives where we have not followed soul, and where we have followed the self-doubt. And for me, I'd like to talk about what is self-doubt. And self-doubt is always, from the way that I've seen it in myself and in other people, it is always to do with not enough. It's like I'm not enough, I'm not being enough, I don't know enough, I don't have enough. And so it's always this fear that comes up, that when you make a choice, and funnily enough, soul doesn't really go by those standards. So often when soul calls, it calls you to go somewhere in the unknown, and it's the unknown that terrifies the self-doubter, because it needs guarantees, always. guarantees. And I'm going through that, facilitating this retreat, for instance. And I've been doing that for 8 years before we were banned from the island. And I'm coming back, and I'm coming back because I love Bali, and I love the people of Bali and the culture of Bali, and it's just where my soul calls me to do these retreats. But it's not easy, that's not an easy job. And then then the people go, yes, but can we go? And is it safe? And is it, and I'm going, oh dear, I can't live in that space of self-doubt. I need to be following spirit without hesitation. And I learned that the hard way. And I think the most profound way that, that recently that we've talked about often is when I decided, when I turned 80, which was 3.5 years ago, and I suddenly went, how am I going to maintain my standard of living? How am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to, I'm now supposed to be an old woman, and I don't like living like an old woman. So how am I going to do that? And, am I enough? Am I not too old? All of that stuff came up, which we've been programmed with. And so I thought, I have to do something, threw myself into an arena that was so far from where soul wanted me to go that, the next minute I'm flying through the air in my car in a 5-car parlor. And it was like being, not very kindly stopped. So from that moment on, and before that, I was always following spirit. But in that moment, I had doubt. I didn't trust in me. I didn't trust in my soul. And that was not, my soul was not happy. It was like, okay, that's not going to happen. And that is what happens when we don't follow spirit. And I know with you, although it's hard work, and I know that, the rewards, and even though the financial strains come, always somehow turns up just when you need it.
Yeah.
So how about sharing some of these self-doubts and how that's impacted on you?
Gosh, that's so much to weave together, and it's such a good opportunity. I've shared through various means over the past years that understanding the human hero's journey is, in my comprehension, it is critical to make any sense out of a life path, a change in life path, a new chapter in our life, beginning a new business, starting a new relationship, ending a relationship. I've overlaid the understanding of the human hero's journey with syntropic agroforestry that talks about succession and how management of an agroforest allows for the natural strategy of life to accumulate more quantity and quality of consolidated life, aka consciousness, conscious awareness into our physiological metric, into our spiritual being. We are here on a lifelong journey for integration of that soul becoming fully expressed through our human physicality. And what seems to be sitting in the way of that often is the distracted mind that has been programmed, that has been directed to be overused, and in most cases for humans, misused, because it's overactive. And it is related directly to what you shared around the scarcity, which is a scarcity mentality that when we study syntropy and syntropic agroforestry, we see that all living life is wired for prosperity and abundance and overflow. It always builds on itself to create more of itself. The accumulation of more quantity and quality of consolidated life into the system, into this system, into that system. That is what nature is doing. And we have been altered in our orientation by means of an unhealthy relationship with death. And this is a program that has been with humanity in the Western world for probably 200 to 250 years. In In the European countries, it may have started a little bit earlier, where the burial sites started becoming associated just to the church, and behind the church, the burial started taking place. And so slowly but surely, the privatization of the death process and dying process became more leaned into, well, what do you do after somebody dies? And here is an agent that will facilitate that process. And so the disconnection of the family unit or the community unit processing the process of death, the grief, and the natural nature of the death and rebirth cycle is something that in the Western world we really disconnected with. And I don't have to say anything much about how that's navigated here in Bali, but the entire community, the entire family, the entire Banjar, they all take responsibility and are intimate part of the weaving of the death and dying process. The ceremonies, all of it is taken care of by the peoples themselves, which binds them to life. And we have this fear of death, but we're not recognizing that death is the other side of life. And of course, life also continues. And of course, that depends on spiritual belief systems. But we have been programmed with a false narrative around death. And what death really is in the neurochemistry of an overactive mind is change, is a new chapter, or the end of an old chapter, the ending of a relationship, the ending of being fired from your job, no longer being allowed to go to the local knitting club because you didn't get jabbed. These are terminations. And we have been programmed to have a fear for that termination, for that pruning, for that cutting out. And what that does is that it causes humans to actually fear change. And somehow we want the stability of the sameness to continue just because it feels comfortable. And this is really foundationally because we've all been so roughed up and traumatized and abused mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, not just over the past 3 years, but our entire childhood has been filled with trespass of sovereignty, traumatization, abandonment, all of these things that you and I have gone into in great depth. What it's leading into with an overactive mind is that we are fearing change. And the voices of the change that is maybe upon us, and in this case, the change that was upon me, for me was easy to navigate, the voices of doubt, relatively speaking. And the reason for that being, and this goes back to the beautiful movie Finding Joe and the human hero's journey, is that I really took to heart that as humans, we really benefit learning how to die mentally, how to die in an identity gracefully, with awareness, with conscious presence. And knowing that when we're then navigating a new terrain, a new ecology, a new chapter of our life into a new relationship with new interdynamics, with different humans and different interplay, to recognize that that change is something that is best to be surrendered into those voices, those doubtful mentalities. Am I actually really going to do this? I don't know if I really want to do this. Wow, this is physically actually really quite cumbersome. And how am I going to keep all the weeds down? And how am I going to, how? And then the mind says, I don't know. But from some of my findings around our sovereignty and how our will has been eliminated out of the English language, every single time, and this may be a nice takeaway for anybody, for any time that you hear your mind say, but I don't know, replace that and counter that with, am I willing to come into awareness? Because we are an infinite apparatus of intelligence that has access at our fingertips to any question that we may have, and Google may answer it for it. But around our self-motivated actions, our self-directed navigation that doesn't require a computer, because it is actually just putting in a trench and planting out seeds and laying down some grass and planting fruit trees and pruning existing bush. That is all self-directed activity. That is physical labor, so to speak. And when the mind says, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know, the real question is, are you willing? Willing to become willing, willing to, and the real question is, what do you want as an outcome? Like, do you actually want the outcome? Yeah, if you want the outcome, are you then therefore willing to navigate forward into the process of getting you there? And when the will is checked in with, it overrides everything. It overrides self-doubt. It basically is the authority that when the will is felt and it's a feeling, it's a, yes, I feel willing, then doubt no longer has a grip, because doubt lives here. But the source code of our willingness comes straight out of our hara, out of our, call it the yoniverse. It's that center point just in our navel, in our underbelly, where our abdomen is, where where you can develop abs if you want to. I'm starting to recognize I'm growing some. When we tune into that willingness and we counter I don't know with I am willing. I don't know, but I am willing to come into awareness. I don't know if I can lift 30 blocks of cement before my interview, which was what I was doing before we got here. Am I willing? Yes, I'm willing, because I want that outcome. And what the will does, it really just eases out all of that clutter, all of that chatter. And there is another piece to it, because as we use our will, the old programs of the mind that I spoke to earlier, that are like the familiarity patterns and the comfort zones, and that identity is slowly but surely disintegrating as a new one is emerging. And the willingness allows that new expression to be carried out. But the disintegration and the dying process, oh my God, it still doesn't feel nice. Oh my God, it still feels like at night I'm like, what am I doing with myself? I need some digital input. I need my fingers. I need to type something. And I'm like, well, just sit with it. And what I have found through my journey with Christos, Sophia, the wisdom of nature, through syntropy being the hidden hand of God, I've really come back to that Christed way of surrendering, where I can then say during the day, I don't know, but I'm willing to come into awareness. But when the identity crisis of disintegration happens, I just give it up to God. I am not here to process death, though death is a process in and of itself, but I'm here to hand over the psycho-emotional disturbances that come with that I can't do anything with. The mind almost says, do something with this uncomfortable feeling of my identity no longer being what it is because my job ended, or my function is different, or my relationship got terminated. And I just go, God, please just take this. This is disintegrating away from me, and I just invite that Christed light to just wash me clean, renew that mind. And I get absolute goosebumps if I speak about it, because it is the Holy Spirit that we are invocating with that, and really acknowledging that I am only human. I cannot mentally, psycho-emotionally process. And if we were capable of doing all of that, why would we even need a higher power? Why would we even need a soul signature if we as humans could just do everything? It is the beauty in the surrender to that spirited, Christed light that says, just take it from me. I don't know. I am willing to die. And I am just opening myself up for the cleansing and the washing. I'm no longer holding on and clinching on to these identities and listening to the mind, but I'm inviting the spirited, Christed Sophia, the wisdom of God, the hidden hand of God, to just come into me. And what happens is grace arrives.
Absolutely. You know, I have missed these conversations. You know, you're talking about the willingness to die. And for me, that is just such a poignant point, because it is not the willingness to die from this life. In actual fact, it is the willingness to live.
Yeah.
For me, it is the willingness to live. I always think about Wayne Dyer's comment, "Don't die with your music still within you." And what people don't realize is that we have so many different songs and so many different types of music within us that, that, as you said, it was infinite. And we are connected to this infinite intelligence that is there waiting to supply when we reach out for it and we open our channels to receive it with the surrender that you talk about. So when we are being called from a soul level, which is in the center of our body and our heart and our solar plexus, it is pure, and it comes from love, and it comes with a knowing that this is the path, that is the hero's journey. But if it comes from up here and it's all these chatterbox and all these questions and these excuses about, I can't do it because this, and I can't do it. And, and when I listen to that and at this ripe old age, I know I've done it all. And I know what happens when I fall into it and when I don't fall into it. And so for me, it is about learning to navigate this in such a way that we have this intimate relationship with this power of intelligence that, we are the human form that does the hard labor. However, when we connect to the engine of it all, when we allow the engine to drive us, then it becomes this wonderful syntropic and symbiotic movement of life moving in us, through us, for us. And therefore, for me, it's this awareness that we all have to come to about decision making, about choices. If you're making a choice from fear or doubt, it's from up here, it's from old programming, it's from years of enslavement, of taking away your ability to make assessments coming from the heart and soul. But if it feels enriching, enlivening, I was talking to somebody yesterday. Yesterday was the day, I don't know what the days are, Monday. And I asked a simple question of, so what is your passion? And as she answered me, there was a light that went on inside of her that I had not seen for as long as I've known her, in the last 2 years. And I went, there it is. There it is. When we actually go there, there is this vibrancy, this life force that just fuels us. And with the willingness to follow that, as you say, then the supply is there. Yeah. However, when we have any kind of remnant of self-doubt, of not being supplied, of not being supported by the unseen, and that's the thing. Everything that comes to us is unseen, and we're so programmed and conditioned into only trusting the seen, when actually the seen is the most untrustworthy that you can come across, right? And for me, it's like, the seen. Just recently, as I was saying, I went to Malaysia because it was Chinese New Year. And I promised my grandchildren that I would come over, and they are obsessed with lion dancing. But, the type where they dance on these 8-foot poles. It's really, really amazing to see. I just, I said, yep, I'm going. I'm just near Bali. I'll skip across. So as I didn't feature. I didn't ask why. I just said, I'm willing, whatever the reason. Obviously, you know more than I do, because we tend to run our life from this limitation of knowledge that we think that's it. And I've thrown that away a long time ago. So I'm in the middle of that. I hadn't even been in the country for a day when, of course, the news came that a very close, nephew of mine had passed away or died, stepped out of his body. And there was this panic because everybody on Malaysian side was trying to get flights to go over to be there for the celebration of life. I looked at it and I thought, hang on a minute. Yes, I checked to see if I could. There was not a flight out that I could take that wasn't going to cost me an arm and a leg. And I like my arm and I like my leg, so that wasn't an option. And so that door was closed. And I went, that's why I'm here. Because I was there to support his Malaysian family and the service, and we could stream it, so we were there anyway. But it was that surrender. In that moment, I surrendered. I just said, I have no idea what's going on, but obviously I'm meant to be here. And then as that evolved, it became so obvious that that was the best place, the perfect place for me to be. And that is something that I think I would love to share with people who are going to be listening to us. When we trust that we are always taken to the place that we're meant to be, when we surrender the chatterbox and we surrender the need to be approved of, the need to look okay according to the rules of this crazy physical world, when we just feel inside that everything is okay, no matter what it looks like out there. I had to laugh when you sent me those photos of and clips of, being in the mud up to your thighs. And I'm going, I hope you improve that before I come. But it was just so good to see, because you had talked about syntropy and land and nature, and to see you throw yourself into that was total surrender to, okay, you brought me here. Now what?
Yeah.
I have a great saying. So what? Now what? I'm here. Now what? And so now what? When I was told I needed to go and run another retreat, I go, really? Because there is a little voice in my head that keeps saying, woman, you're supposed to be an old woman. You're supposed to be, and in Asia, what was really funny, Asians are very protective of their elderly and they look after them really well. But to the point of that, I was constantly going, Auntie, sit down. Auntie, eat this. Auntie, do that. And I adore them. But I'm going, if I stay here, I'm going to have a wheelchair and a walking stick, because you're treating me like I'm not. Auntie, you traveled by yourself. Auntie, you're driving home at 1 a.m. when the plane lands. Like, it's unheard of, because that's not their image of what I ought to be doing. And I think that's the biggest problem. We have images of what we should be and what we have been programmed that we should fit into. And so when that doesn't fit anymore, self-doubt absolutely hits the wall. When your soul calls you to step out of that, and you talked about when you lose your relationship, when you lose, my niece, of course, now is a widow, and so her whole life has changed. His children are facing a new world, and so every 5 minutes, something in your life changes. But if you know how many times people have come to me and they've just lost their job and they go, oh, I've lost my job. And I go, yay, how exciting. Go, you're nuts. No, I'm excited, because you can't lose anything that you're meant to keep. for your highest good. And I know that to be true. And that's a statement I can say over and over again. If you're meant to have it, it will stay. And sometimes people stay in your life that you really wish would go. But if they don't go, you know they're meant to be there for some whatever reason that there is. And that's the same with when soul calls you to do something. Don't question it. Just go for it. Be willing, as you say. And all those voices of not good enough, you haven't. What did you know about building? What did you know? Yes, you're an incredibly wise, knowledgeable person. But one thing we do have is we can learn. So when we say I'm willing, I don't know, but hey, show me. Show me. I don't know. People say to me, "Whoa, Auntie, look at you," and whatever. I've heard that a lot. That's why I say Auntie, because that's what Chinese call everybody, Auntie and Uncle, and I was their auntie, by the way. Oh my goodness, look at you do podcasts and you do this and you're on the internet, and it's like, whoa, look at Auntie. It is, to them, it's unbelievable, because in their belief system, that just doesn't occur, right? So do we stay in those belief systems, or do we break free? Do we break free? That's what it's all about. And creating this new earth, as I've always said, you are creating, agroforestry, but I'm creating that within humans. And I think that it's exactly the same, because we are nature. And bringing ourselves to that inner standing that we are nature. Nature doesn't doubt.
Yeah.
Does it? It just lives. It just wants to live. And it has a life and death cycle. And death feeds life. Yeah. It just keeps on going. That is the cycle of life. And for me, that is the purpose really of bringing us together is serendipitous, as always. But mostly it is to show people that what can be achieved when we let go of the fear of doubt, of the fear of the unknown. When we just jump into the mud puddles and go, I don't know how I'm going to grow a food forest here, but you sent me here. And the thing about it is that there's always signs. There's always signs that something comes towards you. And I know that you shared with me that when you first came here, your little house was still available. Your, the people, your lovely Balinese family were here waiting with open arms. And it's those are the signs that say, come, yes, this is the right place. This is the right place. Don't question it. And it's that inner questioning that we do all the time, this second guessing of not trusting in us, not trusting in our soul, not trusting that we are these incredible expressions of this quantum field of intelligence that we are, an expression of. Not knowing who we are is the greatest crime that I think has really been put upon us through our programming, and this diminishing our inner power. Because when we step into that inner power completely, we do become sovereign, and nobody can, make a living off us. And that is something that we're going to do. We're going to be supporting each other and serving each other, not for profit, but for life, for joy, for expansion. And when I see what you're doing there and what we're doing here, the New Earth community here is just growing exponentially. I've been away for 3 weeks of events, and I turn up and there are 5 new people, and I'm going, oh, and it's growing. It's growing. We are growing. We are growing a New Earth.
So great.
Inland. It is just amazing. So where are you at? What have you planted and what's growing? And
gosh, what have I not planted? Every seed under the sun that I was able to get my hands on is in the ground, from the flowers for the bees. I got a little beehive here on the side. probably about 22 different fruit tree varieties, from jackfruit, durian, mangosteen, rambutan. Gosh, so many seeds. It's just so easy here. You buy a bunch of longans from the market, and every longan has a seed, and you save the seeds, and you just. I'm not planting anything with precision, so to speak, or with mental application on my first plot, in the sense that I've just been throwing papaya seeds because there's 1,000 papaya seeds. What am I going to do? Plant 1,000 papaya seeds? No, I just go out and I just throw them out by the spoonful, and then the right ones go where they need to go, and they grow, and it's like this beautiful verse out of the Bible is that the sower goes out to sow the land, and a part of the seeds ends up on the road, and a part of the seeds ends up in the ditch, and a part of the seed ends up on fertile soil. And those seeds that take root on the road, they wither and die, and those that take root in the ditch, of course, those that take root in the fertile soil grow rich. And it's the same here. If the seeds fall in the pathway, they're going to get trampled on. And that's okay. It's like having that intimate relationship with not one of the programs that runs in order for us to avoid the consequences of our perceived actions that may lead to death, aka change. We want to be in control of controlling the outcome, so that we can predict the change, so that we don't have to be rattled by the change, and we don't have to. And so we do a lot of things based on precision. And that could go for a garden, because our mind can say, yeah, well, if I plant all of that stuff everywhere, then I have to pull it all out later. And it has this attachment to physical activity. I think there's just benefit, particularly navigating with nature, to really see things through the lens of syntropy, is that you're just gardening. It's a meditation. It is a therapy. It is a biological regenerative process that you get the microbes under your feet. So the more you can be out in the garden, the more resilient your microbiome will be. So there's so many ways that we can look at how the engagement with nature is only actually serving us. And we can move out of that narrative of our mind saying all sorts of things. One thing I do want to say on the notion of the mind, and where I mentioned the willingness part to enter into, I feel it's really relevant for people. In my own experience, what I have done is that I would find a new idea, and I would just make the old idea obsolete, and I would just go the other direction. And so some people may hear, it's like, oh, wow, I just need to stop myself when I hear I don't know, and I'm just going to be willing. And we use this like willpower to do that. And yeah, it kind of works. But what Syntropy has taught me is that everything in life is in harmonic interrelationships. And so befriend that mind. Befriend that mind and go as far, and this is really quite relevant, befriend that mind by actually naming it. Give that worrying mind a name. Call it Jessica. Call it Jeffrey. Call it Stanley or Jack, or as I have called mine, Jerry. So that when Jerry is all of a sudden producing all sorts of worries, I know who's talking. And I can love that part of myself as opposed to identifying with it. And this is a step of what I call conscious disassociation, is that we consciously disassociate from the thoughts that are running us, that are seeing. But when we do all that mindfulness, we can actually be in quietude, and we can look and be like, oh, those thoughts are occurring for me. And so we know that then we are the observer. Well, if we are the observer, wouldn't we also want to be kind of like a little bit more in the directorial observations? Like, so who's who in the zoo? So name that beautiful mind of worry when it comes up, when the fear comes up. And it's very simple. So like, well, people may say, I don't know how to name. Are you willing to come into awareness what the name of that worrying mind is? Because if you're willing to come into awareness, then the sound the name, the word, it will just emerge. The cells produce that. Oh, the will of the self has just asked us for the sound associated to this neurological network of worry programming. Okay, here's the sound. And for me, it's Jerry. And so when Jerry goes about worrying, I'm like, yeah, I got to love Jerry up a little bit. I got to love him up. Because a lot of the mentalities that are out there is to quieten that monkey mind, shut it down, alter it, silence it, diffuse it. Whatever is done is like, yeah, we're going to go in alpha meditation so you don't have to be in that monkey mind. No, if anything, that mind is what have kept you safe all this time.
Yep.
Worrying and protecting you and making sure that you don't revisit the same trauma that it actually got formed through. So start loving it. Start really loving it up and say thank you. And I am willing to come into awareness of another way. For me here,
yeah.
I've only mentioned the fruit trees. So I've got a ton loads of spinaches in Cancun. I've got 4 ponds. We're going to build a little kiddie swimming pool as well, so that the younglings that are going to be navigating here on the land have an ecology to safely explore the element of water. I've noticed that little Ishana that is here almost every day. She's 3 years old. I'm Om Sovereign, Uncle Sovereign, Om Sovereign. It's so beautiful. And she is just first pedaling with her feet in the pond. And it's beautiful because it's on one of those little stone bridges. And I'm just like, this was exactly the dream. And she's just pedaling there and we're feeding the fish. And then she stands on the little embankment. And of course, 2-3 days in, she's like, I'm sovereign, help. And so she reaches out for my hand and she wants to go down into the deep. And so she is yay deep in the pond, but also in the mud that is underneath it. And so it is beautiful to see how the design and the dream here for me is all about the future generations. I want it to be an ecology where younglings can safely explore nature in freedom and have that be a runaround fun park of nature. So there's 100 different little pathways that you could trippy crawl around. And now we'll be building a little swimming pool. We're growing Cancun and water spinaches and watercresses and cherry tomatoes, strawberries, bell peppers, capsicums. I haven't done any vegetables as yet because it's just too wet. And a lot of beautiful Asian greens, they're called, like the bok choys and bok choys and all of that. Yeah. And just really spreading the seed around. I'm like, I do not have time at the moment.
Hey, have you got a pomelo in there yet?
Yes, we've got a whole bunch of pomelo seeds thrown around the place. So in a year's time, this place is going to be a real movie in the sound of it, because I'll have to be like, what are you?
That's my favorite fruit.
Yes, so pomelos are in the ground, and I am probably, if I get a little bit more financially abundant over the coming months, I'll be able to actually purchase some mature trees so that I can pick fruit within a year, because I don't want to wait for 3 years just for the sake of, I've grown it from seed. I'm not ideological here, and I'm certainly not a purist. So the quicker we can pick pomelos together, the better.
I'd say so. When you were talking about befriending Jerry, I keep telling people it's about don't throw that away. It's like that's actually what inner child work is about. It's embracing your traumas and bringing them home with love that will heal them. But if you continuously look at every little thing in your life and see it as bad or wrong or something that is hurting you, then it will do that. But when you see it from the perspective of growth, every fear is there to teach you growth. Mm-hmm. Not by becoming the fear, but by going beyond the fear, knowing that it's there to ask you to go beyond. It's about perseverance and determination and the willingness to live life That, I believe, is being squeezed out of us by you've got to get a job, you've got to pay the bills, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. You're not allowed to do something else. And, this constant over control of authorities that don't give a damn about you.
Exactly.
That we then submit to, that has squeezed the life force that actually has the ability to be so expansive to such a tiny little bit. And that is where we have to go beyond. We have to go and fly into the wind and go, I don't know. And I'm okay not knowing, because I know that the life that is in me does know. It knows how to live. And when I give it permission, which is the surrender, to allow it to live to its ultimate, then everything falls into place. And this synchronicity that then occurs, and this absolute symbiosis of cells working together that then occurs is magical. Yeah. And we call it magical because it's not usual for us. But it isn't magical at all. It's natural. It is our innate nature. And so that is where I'm just, more and more, the older I get, the more alive I want to become. Because I know for how many years that I was not alive. I was going through the motions. I was pushing and shoving and manipulating and all of that stuff. And then I came to this place where I realized that is not what life is. Life is a forward moving energy that is constantly in a format of looking for expansion, for growth, for creation. It is creation in motion. That is what life is. So when you're not creation in motion, then your life force is limited. And that doesn't mean that you have to be the best whatever in your job, it just means that you have to be fully in joy.
Yeah.
That you need to be in yourself and feeling this beautiful stillness of knowing that you are absolutely exactly what your soul wanted you to be. Why your soul incarnated into you. Why your life force created this form. And when you surrender to that, then you can call it God, you can call it Fred Nerd, for all I care. It is an unlimited, infinite quantum field of intelligence that creates life. And when we tune into that and we give it full permission to use this particular format that it's created to its optimum, then there are no limits. There, I am constantly in awe when I follow that. What comes towards me? What comes towards me? I just, particularly where it comes with money, I'm the worst money manager on earth. Well, maybe not the worst. Well, yeah, the worst. But you know what? I live a really beautiful life. When I need something, I say, well, listen, I'm doing my job. I need some more of this or that. And instantly it comes forth. I'm constantly in awe, and I go, oh, look at that. And I never take that for granted. I'm always in gratitude. I live in a constant place of gratitude where I am just so grateful, and I feel so privileged to have the conscious awareness of this whole thing called life in me, through me, for me.
Yeah.
And so for all who are listening, and for me and for you, anytime that self-doubt or fear, whatever you want to call it Jerry, I think it's a good idea, comes up, embrace it and go, yes, I remember you, but we're safe. We're wonderful. Everything's fine. You can let go. And what I know to be true is that the more that we surrender into that, the less this Jerry needs to have anything to say.
Yeah, because he feels safe and he feels loved
Absolutely.
and he feels seen because he got told, hey, we got this. Start
Yep.
saying that to yourself. Hey, we got this. It's okay.
We got it.
Yeah.
And I've got this, and you've got this. And hey, I am just so excited that we've got together again. And it's not too much longer. And then I'm going to be wading in that pool. Is it only for younglings or can oldlings come?
Well, I have yet to dig it. So um, we're, um,
You've got a
we're,
few weeks.
I got a few weeks. Great. All right. I'll put some speed behind it.
Oh, it is just so lovely to reconnect with you, Souv. And I'm just so happy for you. You
Hmm.
know, I had a father. Well, we all have a father of some sort, but my father was a Dutchman, and very proud man. He had blue blood. We have blue blood in our veins, and very proud. And so that word pride sticks in my craw. So I never say I'm proud of you. I say I'm proud for you. And because I just think, I just feel so happy for you because there's a light in your eyes and you look strong and healthy and no, it doesn't matter. Everything will come to you when we are open to receive it. And
Yeah.
when Jerry comes up and says, hey, there's not enough of this or that, then what we need to do is say, oh, thank you for letting me know that. And then you just go to the quantum field of infinite possibilities and opportunities saying, hey, I'm doing my job down here. I need a bit of assistance. And in will magic flow because it always does.
So beautiful.
Always does.
Thank you, Yvonne. This is wonderful.
Thank you
Yay.
once more for us to get together, and I'm sure people will be excited to see your lovely face and your paradise. And I can't wait.
Yes, a paradise. Look at that.
and I can't wait to take those selfies.
Great. It's gonna happen.
I
I'll
know
see you
it's going to
soon.
happen.
Lots of
I
love to
love you.
everyone.
Thank you for spending this time with us.
Yay.
Let's grow pomelos and every other thing.
Sure we will.
Bye bye.